Steinhart, the company infamous for essentially ripping off already great designs, Homage as they call them. But is this Steinhart Ocean One Vintage any good? Where to begin? I guess at the start, with a watch that this is paying homage to, the Rolex Submariner. The first reference was a 6204 which Rolex produced in 1953, however the launch was not announced until 1954. The Submariner went through many iterations. The 6205 was the first Submariner introduced with the now iconic Mercedes hands. But the watch that this Steinhart is paying homage to is the reference 6200. They're also known as the Explorer dial Submariners, due to the 3, 6 and 9 on the dial, which is commonly known to be featured on the Rolex Explorer. It was also the first to use the big crown, and it was slightly thicker and more pronounced than previous references. However, it was still relatively small in comparison to today's watches, coming in at 37mm in diameter. The reference 6200 is believed to have been made for very few production years, with an estimation of only 3 to 400 made altogether. So if you're lucky enough to find one of these references, you can expect to pay anywhere from £300 to £550,000, depending on many factors. These are estimations based on a few auction results we've had of this exact reference selling within the past 5 years. Now that we understand the Rolex Submariner and the reference this is paying homage to a little better, let's take a closer look at this Steinhart. Right off the bat, you immediately notice the size. As mentioned, the original reference 6200 was 37mm. Obviously, by today's standards, most wouldn't buy a dive watch of that size. Now I know as watch nerds would, but the common market probably wouldn't. So Steinhart opted for a 42mm case. The finishing on the case is well executed. You have brushing along the top with polished sides, nice chamfering towards the ends of the lugs, giving it more detail. The lugs are quite straight and do not offer much of a contour on the wrist, and it comes in a total length of 52mm lug to lug. Drilled lug holes provide ease when changing straps, a nice touch. At 3 o'clock is a nice big screw down crown, with a touch of red, nice little detail, and this crown, thanks to its size, is a breeze to use. A black aluminium bezel sits atop the case. This features 120 clicks and has a satisfying feel, though it does sound rather tinny. The watch sits at 16mm thick, by no means a thin watch. A fair chunk of this thickness comes from the heavily domed sapphire crystal, which features double anti-reflective coating on the underside. This domed crystal really adds the vintage aesthetic, warping of the dial towards the ends, very reminiscent of what domed acrylic crystals would offer. Red triangle at 12 o'clock with a lume pip, again well executed and a nod to the original. Even down to the profile of the bezel, it sits high and it's boxed with a wide grip, remarkably similar to the original. Now to the dial. The colour of choice is a light grey, attempting to imitate the fading of the black that the dials would commonly adopt over years and years of interaction with light. Printed indices and markers around the dial in gold. Vintage coloured lume plots, creating the puffy lume of a vintage watch. Steinhart Ocean One Vintage stated at 12 o'clock with the logo, all in gold. At 6 o'clock is the wording Swiss, again another nod. The handset used here is Mercedes hands with a lollipop second hand, all polished, giving a nice contrast against the dial. Beaten away inside the watch and hidden under a screw down caseback providing 300 metres of water resistance is the automatic ETA 2824-2. This movement is well established and known within the watch world. Their offerings today still use ETA, but sometimes Solita, as sourcing ETA has become more and more difficult for non-Swatch Group brands. This movement has 25 joules and beats at 28,800 beats per hour, with an estimated power reserve of 38 to 42 hours. It hand winds and hacks, all specs we are accustomed to with an automatic watch. Now this movement does feature a date, and as you can see, the watch has no date, so there is a dead position when using the crown that does nothing. Now to the bracelet, which features solid end links with a non-fixed end, meaning the first link is free to move. This helps drastically with the wearability, especially those with a smaller wrist like myself. Solid link bracelet with screws for removing. Steinhart signed folding clasp with a cross of a fully milled clasp and a stamped metal fold. The watch comes with enough links to basically fit the hawk, so if you've got a big wrist, I'm sure you'll be fine. So, what do I actually think of the watch? You know, I like it a lot. I'm not offended by homage watches like some people are, especially when they are paying homage to something that's stupendously expensive and massively out of reach for most. But the best part about it is, even if the original reference 6200 is in reach for you, your chances of finding one, and it being in the condition you actually want it, is very, very unlikely. So for those reasons, I'm not at all offended by the homage we have here, but I do have some problems with the watch. The size for one, 42mm is just too large, especially when paired with a lug-to-lug length of 52mm. I have a few 42mm watches, but they have a lug-to-lug length of under 50mm, making them wear wide, but shorter on the wrist, and that is totally fine. But it is far too long with no sloping on the lugs. So for someone like me with 6 3/4 inch wrist, it's just too big and wears too long. I also believe the watch is a little too thick, though with the proportions it is understandable, but if it could be brought down to 14mm, that would make a world of a difference. The dial. I find the colour used too light, and it looks as if it's trying way too hard to be vintage. I think the watch would have looked far better with a black dial, the same colour as featured on the bezel. There just isn't a need to make it faded like what we see. The hands would have looked better brushed rather than polished in my opinion, and the movement used is reliable, and I have no complaints there. But the use of a date movement for a no-date watch really annoys me, like there's no need. But it isn't the end of the world, because how often do you interact with the crown? For those reasons, this isn't a watch I would personally add to the collection, and one I would keep. Though if they released it with the changes mentioned above, I'd buy in a flash. The bracelet is comfortable and well made, the movement is reliable and easily serviceable. It ticks a lot of boxes. I love the design and the feel. The quality of Steinhart is great for the price. Now that brings us to the price. The watch new from Steinhart today is about €510, which with today's conversion is around £450. I think that's a very fair price for what you're getting. If you can get away with the size, I'd say this is a perfect fit for anyone looking for a vintage inspired diver. Of course I've mentioned my concerns, but I think if you can get away with the size, it's going to tick a lot of boxes. So the Steinhart Ocean One Vintage does get a tick from me, and it does get a recommendation, which might come as a surprise to a lot of you guys. However, I think it's a great watch, I think it's good for the money, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thank you very much for joining us in today's review of the Steinhart. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, it really does help, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for more. I'm going to try and review as many watches as possible from a very, very wide range. As you've seen here, a Steinhart, I have Rolexes, and I have Omegas, and I have much higher end watches that I intend to review on this channel as well. So if that interests you, if watches interest you, this is the channel for you. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.